Hello, everybody, and welcome to Feature Friday number 6? Yeah, this is 6, right? Anyway, now everybody's typing out Steam Edric E. Oh gosh, the people who are watching on YouTube will have no idea why I'm saying that. I made a joke about a guy whose username was Steam Edric E. At least that's what it looked like. And there was a number at the end of it, too. But, anyway. So, let's open up Quaternion and see what happens. Now, first of all, I get a compiler warning. I'll look into that at some point. I try to fix warnings if possible, simply because, you know. Alright, so you got this go to level select. Let's go to level 1, pad 1. So, you know, it should be alright, right? Well, it takes a freaking long time to load. And the reason for this is that level 1 is very different now. It's like a legit level. So after a while, and some warnings in the console, we get this. Hold on one second. So yes, this is level 1. I don't have a name for it just yet, and it's not completely finished, but this is going to be the first level of the game, guys. So, I'm not going to assume you have full knowledge of how to play. I am going to tell you, like, oh, here's how you roll, etc. So, you know. Oh my gosh, it did still say learning to roll in the loading screen, didn't it? Anyway, so this is today's topic, so to speak. This is this level. The design is basically done, sort of. There's actually a secret area to this level that I'm not going to show you, and that secret area has not been made yet. But you will have to wait until release to see it. So anyway, so you know, here there are going to be some kind of triggers or something telling you how to move and how to jump. And then we've got 4 sort of quadrants to this level. Now the idea of this level is that you have to turn on the lights. So, as you may have heard, in Quaternion in general, the idea that I'm currently working with is the goal of Quaternion is you're in this sort of giant machine, and every level is a section of the machine, and every level you're basically trying to turn on, you know, and enable one of the systems in this machine. So the first one will be the lighting, and so as such, you come over here, and here we've got, like, you know, somewhere over here there will be a light switch that you step on, and it turns on the lights for this central section of the level. Now, what do I mean by turns on the lights? Well, you'll probably have to wait until next week to see. Next week I'm going to actually implement that functionality, and you'll get to see it. Anyway, so then we've got these 4 quadrants. I'm going to save that one for last, because that's where sort of the finish will be. It won't really be a finish pad, though. It will be something else. Will I make new skyboxes? Yes. I will make at least one new skybox. This would not be appropriate for Quaternion's general aesthetic. You'll get to see an idea of what the level should look like aesthetically at the end of next week or the following week after that. Shouldn't the help trigger telling you how to move be triggered as soon as you enter the level? Yes. Yes, it will be. That will be something more akin to start help text, obviously. But yeah, what I'm picturing for the skybox is some kind of overcast gray sky, and if I can get that done by next Friday, you'll get to see it then. So this section here, as you can see, we can't get up here. There's this gap here in the supposed staircase, so we can't get up. So what we need to do is go around back here, and in this little mazy section, aha, we have one of these movable crates. Now, for those who are wanting to, play this game eventually, I have a couple of tips I can already give you on moving these crates. One of them is, if you're going to push the crate, try to jump and then push it, rather than just pushing it on the ground. The reason for this is that, you see how it just tipped over? I think I might have jumped a bit too high, and that's why I did that, but anyway, in general, if you just ram it really hard, it could tip over, like, on top of you. Like, it's harder to control from the bottom. And this is sort of a fundamental law of physics. You want to push something when, at about the center of mass, vertically. And then you achieve the optimal pushing. Yeah, I will admit that this is slightly annoying, pushing the thing into place like this, but it's not terrible. Plus, this kind of block pushing puzzle is something that has not been seen in Marble Blast before, apart from either Simulacrum or Jeff's terribly crappy implementation of crate physics. Anyway, so then you go up onto the wall. Ah, crap. So, I'm going to pretend that wasn't the most hilariously bad jump, and, right here, on top of the wall of the maze, is the next light switch that will turn on the lights in this section. Now, Hi Guy is actually asking me a question that has a very important implication. Fun fact, in bullet physics, wall hits do not work nearly as well. If I try to do a wall hit, that happens. This is unfortunate, if you ask me, but I'm kind of okay with it, because it only reinforces the idea that the physics in Quaternion are not supposed to perfectly match those of Marble Blast. It's supposed to be enough like Marble Blast that if you're used to Marble Blast, you won't be totally thrown out of whack, but Quaternion is, after all, a different game. I'm not 100% certain why the wall hits don't work in this. What I would suspect is as follows. If you think about it, a wall hit depends on you having static friction with the wall as you hit it. Now, the key part there is as you hit it, because ideally, it would seem like we wouldn't really hit the wall for any period of time more than just an instant. The instant you hit the wall, you bounce off. In reality, this isn't the case. Obviously, when you hit the wall, when the ball hits the wall, it actually compresses a tiny bit, if this were an actual marble, and in doing so, it's in contact with the wall for more than an infinitesimal amount of time. Now, the question, of course, is how... the question is, how long is it in contact with the wall, and how long will a physics engine simulate that to be? And this, I would guess, is what's different between Bullet and Marble Blast's physics. Is that Marble Blast physics simulate the ball to be in collision with the wall more often than normal. Or, not more often, but for a longer period of time than normal. Or not than normal, than Bullet. And as such, it's in contact for longer, it gets more upward momentum due to the static friction. I do not know whether Phil's wall trick works. Oh, there's your answer. Phil's wall trick might work, but it would be really, really hard to pull off. And the reason for this is that Quaternion, unlike Marble Blast, doesn't distinguish between walls and slopes as far as jumping is concerned. You can just jump off of a wall if you hit it at any point. I don't really want wall hits, but if enough people complain about them, I'll add them. Still, I would argue, and I may be wrong about this, but I would at least argue that those who don't know, or that those, those who are arguing for wall hits kind of don't really understand the idea of Quaternion as well as they could. Kala doesn't know what Phil's wall trick is. I find this amusing. Phil's wall trick is a trick that allows you to jump repeatedly against a one-tile wall, like this height, and you can actually just scale the wall by yourself without power-ups and without an additional step. You can find videos of this online. In fact, you'll be able to see it at some point when I finally get around to uploading that Project Dragon stream to YouTube, because one of the levels involves a wall trick for one of the sort of side quests. So anyway, this is a simple thing where you just have to push these crates over here. So yeah, it's interesting to notice these physics differences, and it's important to make note of them, because that could throw you off if you're playing a level. Ah, that was nice, and uploaded a link to a YouTube video. Oh my gosh, Kala, that language, please! Think of all of the learning impaired children who are angry with you for using that word. Yep, that was stupid. So anyway, so the way these lights work is they turn on the lights, and again, you'll see what that means next week, in that section of the level. So before you hit the switch, that section of the level is kind of dark. And again, you'll have to wait to see what that means. You'll still be able to navigate, though, very much so. And if we could please try to keep things mature, I don't want the chat to degrade into a flame war. Thank you very much. So over here you have to climb this slope, but this of course involves moving the crates over into position. Well, this is a bit awkward. Hold on. Ugh! There we go. You know you're really getting into the game when you start making grunting noises when you push things. Okay. Hello everybody, I apologize that I lost the stream there, but it looks like we're back now. Sorry about that. So as I was saying, there is a really obvious trick to do here, but I'm not going to spoil what it is. You'll have to figure it out yourself. That being said, given how obvious it is, I expect this won't take you long to figure out. Anyway, let's get on to the final section here. One moment. So here's the last of these sections where you're going to have to light things up. As you see, we've got a bunch of crates around the perimeter here, and we have to push them into position so that you can jump around. Yeah. Or if you're pro enough, you just do this. But obviously having crates there makes it a bit easier. And then somewhere in here will be whatever would take the place of the finish pad. I haven't 100% decided yet what that's going to be. However, it'll be something. So that's the level. There's another thing I want to show off. It's strange. People seem to have gotten really quiet. Anyway, there's one other thing I've been working on. So I started working on the actual implementation of this, and I realized one big issue. Namely, you're supposed to step on these switches, right? Which normally would be really simple. It's just an on-collision event, right? Oh, I should probably put one here. Yeah, one issue. On-collision events completely broke when I made the migration over to Bullet. The reason for this is that on-collision events are determined in Marble Blast's physics. So if you're not using Marble Blast physics, if you're using Bullet physics, well, no more on-collision. But I have restored on-collision. So the way you do this is you use this function called BT-enable callback. I'm going to use the player's body. And as you can see, when I step on one of these boxes, if you look at the console, we're getting all sorts of echoes. Hello there, and then that first ID is the ID of the box, and the second one is the ID of the marble. You'll see that the box changes if I jump on a different box. If I jump on the level, then I get a warning that it didn't define the on-collision event. So I'm going to have some way of circumventing that issue. You can see the order in which the boxes were created. That's kind of cool. Oops. So yeah, now that I have these on-collision events, you'll be able to use this to make things that, trigger when you hit them, or similar. It'll currently only work for things that have bullet collision. That is to say, triggers still do not work yet. However, triggers will be a priority at some point. In fact, triggers will be a priority this week, because I kind of do need help triggers for this level, don't I? I just realized this. Wonderful. I have my work cut out for me this next week. So yeah, one last thing I'd like to say about this. As I said in the topic, this took more time than I was thinking, and as such, I didn't really finish the primary goal as I put it down for this week. So, as such, it's going to basically become next week's primary goal, finishing up the implementation for the main section in this level. And that includes the light switches and the help triggers and all that fun stuff. If I finish implementation, I'll work on aesthetics, actually replacing these textures with textures that aren't just Marble Blast Gold textures, and other fun stuff like that. So, one thing I think I should mention at this point is definitely don't plan on Quaternion being released anytime soon. And let me explain what I mean by that. So, as I've said, it's going to take me like another week and possibly 2 more weeks to finish up the main part of this level, and that's the main part. All the secret stuff that I mentioned earlier, I'm going to have to come back and do that later. So, as such, this is also a fairly small level for Quaternion standards. So, as such, expect every level to take like 3 weeks or more. Given that I'm planning on having like at least 15 levels, this means Quaternion easily is going to be over a year in development. Just as a very rough estimate, it's going to be definitely more than a year. So, yeah. This is only Feature Friday number 6. Get ready to see Feature Friday number 60. Can't wait to see what that's going to be like a year from now. Okay, did I say 3 weeks to play a level? No, it's going to take me like 3 weeks to make these levels. That's what I meant to say. Somebody has an idea for the light switch. Let me take a look at that. Ooh, interesting idea. I think I'm going to switch to, I think for both simplicity reasons and gameplay, I'm going to stick to just like floor pad type switches at the moment. Think something almost akin to the switches in Buttons and Gates from MBPU. Anyway, let's see what else. I mentioned secret content. I don't want to reveal everything. Some of the stuff you guys will have to figure out once the game's released on your own. Because, otherwise it'd just spoil the whole game, right? However, what happens if I take a week to work on the secret stuff? What do I show on Friday then? Well, two answers to this question. Number one, I'm going to try to still come up with something that I can show each week. Number two, if that fails, it might turn into like sort of a design discussion where I discuss some of the game design elements in Quaternion and similar things like that. Like maybe we could, toss ideas around. I don't know. We'll cross that bridge when we come to it. That's the long and short of things. So at this point, I'll take any questions people have, because, yeah, that's basically all I have to show of this level at the moment. Anybody have questions? Well, while you guys think of questions, I guess I can just talk about something. When's the Quaternion World Record Rampage? That's a good one. Well, that actually brings up a good point. I'm not currently planning on having a timer in the final game. It would be somewhat pointless to have a timer. Why bother keeping track of the amount of time you're spending on a level? I mean, I guess you could, but the game just kind of doesn't work like that. Because, for one thing, there are sort of side quests and similar, and what about that? Can I help with making some textures? I'm going to give you a tentative yes. However, I'm going to qualify that. There is definitely a way that I want Quaternion to look visually. You really won't be able to see this style until next week or the week after, whenever I finish the aesthetics for this level. So once you can see this level, or at least the lower part of this level, once you can see it, once you can see it with all the textures that I'm looking to have, then go ahead and start making textures that you think go along with that theme. Otherwise, I would hold off for the moment just because it would be rather pointless for you to create something and then send it to me and I go, no, this doesn't at all fit the theme that I'm going for, but thanks anyway. You get what I'm saying. People are really saying I should include some sort of timer, and here's what I might do. I did this with a game I made called C, or CCCCCCCCCC, a long time ago. It was, after you finished the game, you had sort of this time attack mode where you could play through all of the levels as quickly as possible. I might do something similar with Quaternion, sort of have speed running features built into the game like that so it times you. Okay, when the time comes, that is to say when I have more of a graphical style, then yes, feel free to make textures and send them to me. I would really appreciate that because it takes some of the workload off of my back. However, do keep in mind this sort of disclaimer that I reserve the right to accept or reject any content that I'm given. I will, however, make the promise that if I reject it, I will at least give you a clearly defined reason why. I guess I have to qualify that if we're going to be pedantic by saying that I reserve the right to come up with my own definition of what I mean by clearly defined. But hopefully you won't be disappointed if I do give you that reason. Is this interior a DTS or a diff? Well, first of all, you should sort of be able to tell this by looking at these errors. Static shape data. Yeah, this is a DTS. Actually, that's slightly incorrect. This is 5 DTSs currently. It's going to be split up into more, actually, for reasons related to the whole thing with the lights that I was mentioning earlier. But one DTS is sort of the big structure of this level just in general. And then I have more DTS shapes. I have one more for each of these sort of 4 sections over here. So, like, this area here where you've got, like, it's sort of walled off around the outside, and then you've got these platforms in the middle. That's a separate DTS from the rest of the level. Like, it's separate from the floor. There are multiple reasons why I did this. Mainly because it just makes things easier to manage in general. How come when you look at an interior from a distance, it looks red? That is not just the stream, that is the shader engine I'm currently using. It has that glitch with JPEG textures. It seems to work fine for PNGs. If I end up using this shader engine, the reshade, in the final game, I'll just make sure all the textures are PNGs and we'll have nothing to worry about. If, however, I don't use reshade in the final game, well then we have no reason to worry. And I plan on replacing it with the shader engine from MBP/PQ, which will, which will hopefully be in a more complete state at some point over the next, like, year. That's the great thing. I don't really care when that shader engine gets finished, as long as it's done at some point for Quaternion releases, and we've already established it's going to be at least a year. I have no idea why it's specifically red. The interesting thing is it's not always red. For Grid Cool and Grid Cool 2, it's red. For Grid Warm, it's actually green. This is a bit hard to see, but you can see it on some of these pillars if you look at the right angle. It turns green. Oh, yeah, like you can see it there for a second. I'm actually not certain whether it's green or like a light cyan color. Anyway, and then for Grid Neutral, it's actually like sort of a dark blue or black. It's weird. It would be interesting to do research into what causes those colors to show up the way they do, but I really don't see much of a reason to bother at this point. Did you fix the falling through the floor glitch? You know, it's interesting that that glitch hasn't really been showing up in this level, which is a good sign. But in general, I'm pretty sure no, I haven't fixed it. You might still be able to replicate it in certain cases. Like, let's see, can I just go through this edge if I aim it correctly? Oh wow, that almost glitched, but Oh, I've been informed that apparently the same thing happens if you're using Fraps to record yourself. I find this fascinating. Yeah. Oh, you may notice a couple of weird bouncing glitches on this map currently, like, I just bounced there when I shouldn't have. Well, that was an edge hit, that was supposed to happen, but, like, if you watch closely, you see I bounce a little bit when I go over this corner. I think that's due to the fact that this map isn't really quote-unquote polished yet. That is to say, some areas of the map have internal faces. That is to say, faces actually inside the map of the level. And some parts of it have faces that sort of, yeah, some parts of it probably have duplicated faces, like, and duplicated vertices. And on top of all of that, the code I'm currently using to fix the physics is a bit more restrictive in its cases than it should be. That is to say, I'm actually planning on at some point, not currently, it's not very high priority, because as is the physics work, well enough to continue level development, but at some point I'm going to want to make it so that if you are, I don't really want to open Paint and whip up a diagram right now, but basically, currently it only detects triangles as touching if they share a vertex. Ideally, it should also detect them as touching if they have an edge that overlaps, but the vertices don't necessarily correspond in their locations. It's hard for me to explain that better without drawing a diagram, and I don't feel like opening Paint at the moment. Hopefully it's sort of obvious as to how that works. If there are any other questions, again, definitely feel free to ask. Oh yeah, if I were to fall right now, out of bounds doesn't work. Because triggers in general don't work. But I'm gonna see, I'm gonna look into that. I think Bullet has a system of creating triggers, wherein you can make sort of a box, and then check for collision with it. I'm not certain though. Worst comes to worst, there are ways you could just do it from script. It'd be less efficient though. If you're turning on the lights for this level, will the first part be completely dark? Yes and no. It will be completely dark, as in there won't be lights per se. However, you will still be able to see, for a couple of reasons. Number one, the textures won't be completely black. They'll still have sort of a dark gray to them, so you can at least see where you're going. Number two, once I get a more pristine shader engine, I'm going to try to add specular reflection. You know how if the sun hits an interior in MBU at the right angle, it has this sort of glowy, shiny effect? Glossy, I guess is how you would describe it. I'm going to try to do the same thing to these tiles once the shader engine is working. And as such, you'll definitely be able to sort of see the sun shining off of them, and you'll be able to move. Are edge hits affected in the same way wall hits are? In most cases, edge hits should still work. However, edge hits are also primarily, right now, the way that you get the game to glitch out and put you inside an interior. Or inside a DTS, I guess. So I'm not really going to have very many parts of levels that require edge hits. If you find shortcuts with edge hits, that's great. Good for you. But let me see here if I can do an edge hit. Or, no, I should just be able to do one across this corner like this. I guess I just sort of skipped over the edge. Yeah. Are you planning on multiplayer at all? I am, in fact, doing exactly the opposite. I am planning on not having multiplayer. The reason for this is that, edge hits still kind of work. They might not be as powerful, but they still definitely do work to some degree. Anyway, I'm planning on the opposite. I'm planning on specifically not having multiplayer, and the reason for this is that it would make code a lot more complicated. It would be nice to have multiplayer, but I don't know if I could feasibly do it with bullet physics, with the way that Marble Blast sends things over the server. It would be a pain to try to implement bullet. Oh, I might be able to edge hit off the slope. Or not. Edge hits are going to be harder to do. Yeah, that's interesting, actually. Edge hits are going to be harder to do because of the way I fix some of the collision glitches. It also disallows for certain types of edge hits. But yeah, some types of edge hits you can still do just fine. Jeff wants me to know that Bullet has triggers. That is good to know. That means it'll be maybe not easy to implement them, and it'd still probably be easier to do them in script, but doing it as triggers in Bullet would be a lot more efficient. and that's the good part. Am I planning on other variations of boxes? Matt says I have wooden ones, but maybe steel ones that are harder to push, and you'd need more velocity to push them. One thing I feel like I should clarify is that these wooden boxes will not... Oh, whoops. Ignore that. Flash drive just flew across my desk. I'm going to have wooden boxes, I'm going to have boxes. These wooden boxes, though, aren't actually going to be wooden. I'm just using the wood texture as an MBG texture to use as a placeholder. With the way the style of the final game is going to look, nothing will really look like it's made out of wood or out of any, like, easily recognizable material. Maybe glass? I don't know. But yeah, there won't be wood. However, boxes of different weights could definitely be a thing, and that's definitely something I will take into consideration when designing further levels. So thank you for mentioning that idea. I will keep that in mind. Does diagonal movement work, and am I going to have it in Quaternion? Well, as evidenced by the fact that I've been doing a lot of diagonal movement, it does actually work as it does in Marble Blast. I'm fairly certain diagonal movement does make you go faster. Well, let's try this. Let's do an experiment. Let's see how long it takes me to get to the other end of this with forward movement. Go. 7, 8, 9. Okay, so it took me about 4.5 seconds. Now let's try a diagonal movement. Yeah, that took like 3.5 seconds. Diagonal movement, confirmed, is faster, and I am planning on keeping it that way because, again, it's one of those Marble Blast compatibility things. Like, I'm not trying to mimic Marble Blast exactly. However, I would like to at least keep the physics close to Marble Blast if possible, so as not to throw people off. And diagonal movement doesn't really matter terribly much as far as gameplay is concerned. I mean, yeah, I guess it could make you able to jump longer gaps if you used it, but, you know, we're all used to designing Marble Blast levels where that's something you have to consider, so... yeah. So in any case, diagonal movement, unless I say otherwise in the future, plan on diagonal movement definitely being a thing you can do. What is the style/theme of Quaternion? Is it futuristic? Is it retro? What is it? I would definitely put it as futuristic. It's almost sort of cyberpunk-ish in a sense. Like, basically picture everything is like black but with neon lights, sort of. It's a bit hard to describe without referencing the movie whose graphical style I'm basically entirely ripping off in doing this. I believe I did mention that movie on the forums, though. And yes, I understand that I'm not really being original if I just say, yeah, I'm going to rip off this movie's graphical style. But it's a generic enough style in practice that, you know, like, you get the idea. Like Simulacrum. Similar to Simulacrum, and Simulacrum was actually my original plan, but I decided that Simulacrum looked a bit too, I don't know, cheesy, maybe? Yeah. Simulacrum actually had a really similar graphical style in some ways to an even older game I made once called Cubics. I still have Cubics, so I'm probably at some point in the future going to stream Cubics. It was a pretty fun game, actually. But yeah, you can find out more about what I plan to do for the style in the Marble Blast forum topic where I first announced Quaternion. All these games I made. You know, it's funny that you should say that, because in practice, I feel like I haven't made and released enough games. Let me clarify what I mean by that. I've actually made a lot of games that went unreleased, and this is somewhat sad in my opinion. I think I've released maybe 5 games, and that's counting NBPU. I've mentioned like 3 in this stream. 3 games. Let's see. I know I've mentioned MBPU, obviously. I've mentioned Cubics. What other game I've made? Oh, I mentioned CCCCCCCCC. I guess that makes 3 if you count Powered Up. I don't know. I didn't fully make Powered Up per se. I made it from an existing game, so it sort of half counts. Yeah. I have not yet, apart from the fact that I'm about to do so, I have not yet mentioned Quintuplication or Resonance or Stoichios. Those are all really fun games, by the way, and you can actually download them from my website. However, I really shouldn't be pointing as many people to my website. I mean, I guess, yeah, you can go to my website. It's in a bit of a weird state right now. I've migrated it from another site, didn't bother to move the domain registration. My domain name expired, but it was a crappy domain name to begin with. But anyway, my website is in a really, really unpolished state right now. What would actually be ideal is if I could find a web server that supports C# MVC, because that's what I've been using in part at my work, so I'm really familiar with it by now. Yeah. Anyway, I'll put a link to my website in the chat. Is that the right link? Yep. So if you go to that link, and then you can find Stoichios, you can find Resonance, you can find Quintuplication, you can find CCCCCCCCCC. I am not Polish. That's one of those cheap domains that you can get for free because they're shady as heck. But it'll do for now, right? Yeah, I should maybe get legit web hosting at some point. I don't know. Anybody want to chip in money? No, I'm kidding. I don't need people to chip in money. I guess on the one hand I am a college student, but on the other hand I actually do have a job right now. So, well, enough about my financial situation. Go check those games out. Actually, Resonance shares some elements with the idea for this game. Oh, I did miss Matt's question. I am sorry, Matt. I didn't miss it. I saw it and then forgot about it. Have I done anything so far that's not possible with a diff? I think, in theory, any shape is possible with a diff. Within limitations that I'm going to try to stick to anyway, because they would make the physics go weird. Anyway, so the thing with it is, there's not much that you can't do with a diff. However, these DTS and RAW files are easier to make from Blender and easier to load into the game. And it'll be way easier to create some shapes. Like, in a diff, good luck making a sphere, which might be a part of a level at some point. You can do a sphere in a diff. It's been done. I think Phil did it once. But it's really hard to do, especially if you want the thing to export. So, yeah, in general, DTS is just cleaner and easier to work with for generic shapes like that. Yeah, diffs are pretty cool though. I mean, the tricky thing would be to the tricky thing is to make sure that your diff is working right. Like, it's hard sometimes. Diffs can be really hard. I'm sorry. Somebody pointed out that diff, the way I'm saying it over the stream, it comes out sounding like a similar word. What's the command for whispering? I honestly have no idea. That's a Twitch thing. I have a suggestion. Later in development, you should add detail to the levels. Since you mentioned your machine, like you should add gears or wires. Gears and wires conjure certain elements of a machine. Like, wires makes me think electronic, gears makes me think some kind of mechanical thing. I'm planning on having, spoiler alert, at least one level where gears are a big part of the level, and sort of the same with wires. So, as such, I'm not sure if I want to include things like that in all the levels, like, keep it thematic or whatever. But I will definitely add scenery. That's part of the whole aesthetic element. Not sure if I'll do that all now, or if I'll come back and do it later after sort of the main level proper is working. But I'll definitely add scenery, like, maybe some sort of pillar type things like in MVP, except, I don't know, cooler somehow. I'm aware that you can export spheres and other shapes if you export it as legacy diff and then use difffix. However, in practice, I've also heard that difffix can cause issues. Things like spontaneously, making deletions to your level, like removing faces, or sometimes like faces will be there but they're not collidable, stuff like that. In general, difffix I see often as more of a hack than a quote-unquote legit tool. I found this image. Whirligig Studio. Yeah, I am not the only Whirligig Studios. I'm not the only Whirligig. There are others. But I don't really care that much because I think whatever we're doing is different enough that it probably won't cause confusion. Plus, if there's another Whirligig, I'm the one that has a 231 on the end. Always remember the 231. Wait a minute. 231 is 3 numbers, and the middle one is 3, and the other 2 add to 3. Half-Life 3 confirmed. So, anybody have any other questions? You guys have been asking some great questions, by the way. Thank you for pitching in with those. 23 is number 1. Oh my gosh. You do realize, yes, 23 is number 1. I know that reference. That is a reference to the Deku Scrubs. Are they Deku? Yeah, they're Deku Scrubs. On the bottom floor of the Deku Tree in The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time. That is still one of my favorite video games. I freaking love the Zelda series. I used to be, completely obsessed with Zelda games, and I'm actually kind of disappointed at the fact that I don't really play them anymore, but I'll have to get back into that at some point, maybe at some point fire up the Wii that I have back at home, start Skyward Sword over, because I played it up to the point where, I got to the 3rd Spirit Trial, and I freaking hate Spirit Trials. Okay, so here's the thing. Pardon my rant, but there are really a few things that I hate if I see them in a video game. One of these things is timed levels. Another is stealth missions. In general, I don't really like things that where you could lose a large amount of progress in a short amount of time. And there's not really a way to save it, to prevent that from happening. Also, I found the Tear of Light quests in Twilight Princess to be kind of boring, and so basically take Tear of Light quests, except now you have a 90-second time limit to get from each one to the next, and you have to plan out your path strategically. Yeah, pathfinding, also don't really like. And if things catch you, or if your time runs out, oh no, you have giant guys running after you that can kill you in one hit, and you have to start over. Oh my gosh, I remember the first time I had to do the Lanayru trial. I remember how that went. At one point, I ran out of time, and the things were coming after me, and I was like, my heart was pumping. and it took like a couple of it took like a couple of minutes before I got to the next one, and like I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I survived that long. But yes, 23 is number one. Was in the in the first dungeon in Ocarina of Time. I've always wondered if that was meant to be a basketball reference, due to the fact that 23 is the number of a very famous basketball player who is known for being, quote, number one in a sense, given that he's, I would argue at this point, the most famous player in the history of basketball. I mean, yeah, like LeBron comes close, but who doesn't remember Jordan? He has shoes named after him, for goodness sake. Shoes! Anyway, shoes aside, 23 is number one, and I think that's actually where I got 231 from. It wasn't just that. There was a time in my life when I saw 231 pop up in like 3 otherwise completely unrelated places, and I decided, screw it, that's like my number from now on. So yeah, I don't really see it as superstition, more just, I mean, it's a cool number, right? And cool coincidences are fun. So yeah, 231. Fun stuff. It also has a pretty nice prime factorization. 3 times 7 times 11. It's 3 distinct primes, man. What's not to love? I don't know. Why would you say 29 is the best number? What's cool with 29? I mean, it's prime, but so is 37. And 37 is cooler than 29, because if you multiply it by 3 cubed, you get 999. So, if you write the same number 3 times in a row, or 6 or 9 more times in a row, it's a multiple of 37. Fun fact. So yeah, enough Zelda nostalgia and similar things. Yeah, oh my gosh. I realized the other day, I still find this hard to believe. Did you realize? Let me make sure I'm getting this right. Um, I feel so old for realizing this. Yeah. Super Mario Galaxy came out almost 8 years ago. That does not feel like an 8-year-old game to me. Like, what is up with that? It's crazy. Like, okay, to put things into perspective, Super Mario Galaxy came out closer to the release date of Marble Blast than to today. Marble Blast is a really old game. Isn't that fun? As a temperature, 29 is cooler than 231, but not incredibly cool. Um, oh, so close! I checked to see. It is currently 28 degrees outside. I thought it was going to be 29 and then it would be a really fun coincidence, but no. Off by 1 errors, dang it. Yeah. 8 years ago was a long time ago. Let's see. What was the latest version of MVP 8 years ago? Like, obviously 1.50 wasn't out. Was 1.10 out back then? No, I doubt that. Was MVP even released? Help me out here, somebody who knows a lot about Marble Blast history. Like, Matt tends to know a lot about Marble Blast history. Matt, what was the latest version in MVP in 2007? In November. 1.0. Wow. So the demo, yeah. So MVP was like just getting released around then, but maybe not. Yeah, a month after Super Mario Galaxy then. Wow. Holy crap, I'm old. I'm not really that old. Yeah. Oh, I'm getting moments like that, though. The other day, I saw some pictures on Facebook. Yeah, a couple of my friends from school stood up for this guy's wedding. Like, a guy I know got married, and a couple of my good friends were at the wedding. Like, groomsmen for the wedding. Like, what the frack? Like, ugh. But, that's what happens to all of us as we get older. We realize that we're getting older and we go, what the heck is happening to me? I really ought to fix those console warnings. So, something else I feel like I should advertise while we're at it. No promises yet. I think we basically have it scheduled, but haven't been able to officially, say yes to it yet. But sometime soon, possibly Sunday, I'm going to be streaming another old game I made. More details to come. What's my history of Marble Blast? Wow, that is a great question. So, back in the day, I think my dad found Marble Blast first and showed it to me, and I became completely obsessed with it. But I originally sucked at it. So I could complete all the beginner levels except for Grand Finale. I think I just was able to beat Jump, 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 and then, failed miserably trying to beat Monster Speedway Qualifying. And I tried Thrill Ride, but no. So that's one thing that's interesting to look back on is how I've just gotten so much better at this game over the years, I've gone from that to actually being able to beat all of the levels, which I can actually do at this point, which, well, obviously I can. I'm not quite to being able to beat all the gold times, but, I don't really bother at this point. It's a fun game, but it's more fun to code. Anyway, but yeah, then I first joined the forums. Oh man, that was a long time ago. It was back when the forums were at GarageGames.com, and I joined those forums. I was a total noob at first. Like, my first post had, basically no punctuation in it. And I have no idea why I did this. I was such a noob. I got caught in a couple of flame wars with Luke Skywalker, back when that was a thing. They banned him shortly thereafter. Then ProBoard started in 06. However, I didn't join them, or 07, something like that. Or I didn't join the ProBoards forum until, when would that have been, if I do the math? 08. Yes. Fall of 08, I think it would have been, when I joined the ProBoards forums. And yeah, before then I had been working on Philip at some point. Philip was a great idea. Well, it was a somewhat mediocre idea, but Philip was actually a thing at one point. And I so wish I could find the files to it, but I don't think I have them, and I doubt Henry and Lukey have them. Henry and Lukey aren't really even on the forums anymore. Yeah. Then, of course, there were a couple of other little modding things I did here and there. I made Tic-Tac-Toe, I made Nim, I made Minesweeper. You guys remember those, hopefully. And I actually made a mod. I made Marble Blast Powered Up a couple of years ago. And once that was a success, I decided, hey, let's make it better. And I made 1.5. And once that was a success, Quaternion. I'd actually been planning Quaternion for quite some time before 1.5 was released. Planning as in planning to do it, not necessarily doing any detailed planning yet. But I thought, wouldn't it be great if I used bullet physics and just made it into a new game? And it would be an awesome game. And yeah, so Quaternion's in progress. Oh, I didn't even mention that there was Project Dragon, of course. You guys have seen Project Dragon by now. That was a really cool mod idea. It's a shame it never got done, but we've already discussed the issues with it. Number one, parts of it were kind of ambitious, I guess. The biggest issue, I think, was my being overly reliant on other people to do the hard parts, I guess. Regardless. So yeah, I definitely have quite a bit of history with this game. Like, seriously. I've said before, Marble Blast for me is kind of like that old girlfriend that, like, you've had and, like, broken up with, like, 3 times. And as a result, like, you just keep coming back. Like you realize that she's taking over your life and you want to, like, be independent and do other things. But then you just keep coming back to her. Says the guy who has never even, like, been on a first date. But, people who have had girlfriends at some point, you know what I mean, right? Anyway. It was a great idea if it wasn't executed properly. Yeah, that's definitely a good way to put it for Project Dragon. Power packs were also a thing, yes. Yeah. Power packs were basically my answer to the dilemma of, I have so many cool, like, level ideas for MBPU still, but, like, I can't keep doing MBPU because, like, I said I was done with it. Also, ta-da! We've officially rolled over the limit. Wow. So yeah, we've been streaming for a whole hour now and haven't reloaded levels in the process. Good job, guys. Good job. Don't even say MBPU 2. Please, like... like, Quaternion already is going to take me years, okay? So, yeah. Congrats. Quaternion is still more stable than MVP. That's good to know. I haven't fallen... Here's something really interesting. It's been over an hour. I've been in this level, and I haven't fallen through the floor yet. What do you know? And I'm getting email messages. Oh, look. Fun stuff. Yeah, can that please be a thing in PQ? If you, yeah, can that please be a thing in PQ? If you stay in a level for over an hour without it crashing, you just win. Do you pass the qualify time? Good question. For the record, if you're wondering whether Quaternion will have qualify times, no. Although it might have some missions that are timed in some sense. Based on what I said earlier about timed missions while we were discussing Skyward Sword, I'm going to try to keep those to a minimum and try to make it, like, sort of maybe easy to finish in time. But, I mean, a few timed missions here and there can't hurt. Yeah. Yeah. Doesn't like timed missions, doesn't like stealth missions. While we're talking about Zelda, what do you think I thought of the Temple of the Ocean King in Phantom Hourglass? That wasn't actually terribly bad, though, because, like, I mean, yeah, the phantoms were annoying, but the time I found never really tripped me up. Um, are we still connected? Yeah, hi guy. FYI, the web chat server crashed. Yeah, Phantom Hourglass is a pretty decent Zelda game. It has its benefits, it has its drawbacks. Um, hi guy knows. Jeff has it. Okay. Um, anyway, but you know, I'd say it's worth a shot. Well, what I'm referring to is the fact that there's a huge dungeon in the game that you visit repeatedly back and, going back and forth between it and the other dungeons, which is basically one giant stealth mission that also has a sort of global time limit. That's right, you can only spend a certain amount of time in it, like, total. I think there's some way to, like, reset the timer. I forget what. Like, there's some way to, like, save your progress or some such. But yeah. Um, if you're gonna play one of the DS Zelda games, though, play Spirit Tracks because, in my opinion, Spirit Tracks it has a dungeon that's similar, but I think they improved the concept vastly in Spirit Tracks. Like for instance, there's no time limit anymore, and also the stealth becomes slightly less stealthy because the things that are chasing you, you can eventually like control them. Not eventually. I think you can actually do that right off the bat. But yeah. Also, Spirit Tracks has some of the most fun boss fights. Um, yeah, a couple of the boss fights in Spirit Tracks were really great. The music is awesome. The Spirit Tracks overworld theme is, in my opinion, it's my favorite overworld theme from the Zelda series thus far. And the Spirit Tracks. Oh, what else? The story is actually pretty nice. Like, it's surprisingly dark for a Toon Link game. But enough talk of Zelda. Does anybody have any more questions regarding Quaternion? If not, I'm going to end the stream pretty soon. Be on the lookout, though, for that other stream that I mentioned. Yeah, anybody have any other questions? Oh, dang it. Normally I give you, like, some number of seconds, but I kind of can't count that because the timer isn't working. Oh, also I apologize for not having the Project Dragon stream up just yet. I'll try to do that sometime soon, within like the next week or so. It's a bit tricky to do because like you have to open the YouTube video editor, splice all the videos together because there were a couple times that I disconnected, etc., etc. But if anybody has any ideas for Quaternion, again, by all means, let me know. If anybody wants to make assets for Quaternion, let me know. I could use some maybe sound effects at some point. That would be nice. Like I'm still trying to figure out what I'm going to do for the rolling sound. Like I want it to still sound like rolling in a sense, but I don't want it to be the default sound. So I don't know. I'll have to figure that out. And of course, pay attention on the forums, on the web chat, etc. for information